Hello everyone, my name is Rutendo Tavengerwei, and I am so pleased and so grateful to hear that you've chosen to read my book and that you're enjoying it and that you have thousands or hundreds of questions for me. So I'm going to try and answer some of your questions. Hopefully I'll be able to give satisfactory answers. I'm excited. Okay, so the first question is, what is the meaning of the mbira for you? Why did you decide to use it as a key object in the story? Right, so the mbira is native to a lot of African countries, one of them being Zimbabwe, where I'm from. So I thought it would be very interesting to write with an instrument that is native to my country. So the mbira, also because I used to play it when I was younger. Well, I can't play it now, but I used to play it when I was younger, so I thought it would be quite interesting to, explore that instrument together, the sounds that it makes, which I just felt like helped my descriptions in the books as well. And I thought it would be quite interesting if Tanyaradzwa and also Shamizo was playing mbira. So yeah, I just really wanted something that's native to the country and something that would, stand out as, something that's originally from Zimbabwe. Okay, the second question is the cultures in Zimbabwe and Switzerland are very different from each other. How did you deal with this change? Well, I think because I've been moving around a lot since I was a child because of the nature of my parents' jobs when I was younger, and then also now because of university and work when I was older. Um, my move to Switzerland wasn't a big shock because it wasn't the first time I'd been away from home. It wasn't the first time I was living by myself and adjusting to a new culture. So it wasn't very difficult for me. But it is different. When you move to a new place, you have to make new friends. You have to adjust to the language. In Switzerland, they speak French, German, among other languages, and I had to, adjust to the fact that English is not the main language. You have to adjust to people's culture, which is very different from mine. So I had to adjust as well. As much as it was not a shock, I was very aware when I was moving that I'd have to adjust to a lot of things. But I was also quite aware that, I need to preserve my culture as well and where I'm from and the beliefs that I have, that I can't give them up and adopt, those of the place where I'm going. So, that's how I dealt with it. Like I just mentally prepared myself for it and, tried to make sure that I am able to adapt and adjust, but at the same time, I'm able to keep my personal beliefs and culture intact. Third question is, what was it intentional to have female protagonist in your book, or was it an unconscious decision, and why? That's a good question. Um, hmm. So I think it was a subconscious decision. I don't think I sat down and particularly thought, oh, I should have female characters. I think what happened was, at the time, I felt I could be, you know, truer to female characters as my main characters. Um, and I thought I could relate more and bring out the story better if it was female characters. So that's why I used female characters as the protagonists. But I've come to learn that it's not necessarily true. Like I'm with my second book that's coming out early next year. I've learned that I can actually, play around with people's voices. I just need to be able to deliver that well. So in my second book, you'll find that there's two protagonists as well, a male and a female protagonist. And I think I've been hearing feedback from my editors and publishers that I was able to deliver that well. So there's a bit of change in that. But I do think, in a way, I hope to always have female protagonists, even if I have multiple protagonists, because, I do believe that our stories are still quite underrepresented, especially coming from African culture where there's still very strong patriarchal society, and women don't always have a voice, and young girls like yourselves, if you're watching, it's very important to kind of see that, you know, you can do certain things, you can leave out certain things, that there are people who are also going through the same things that you're going through. And so yeah, I hope to always have female protagonists in my stories. Sorry, there's a dog barking somewhere close by, if you can hear it. Okay, so the fourth question is, when and how did you decide to write a book? What have you learned from it? What was your greatest challenge? So I've been writing for quite a long time, hey. I started writing when I was 5 or 6, and had my dad tutor me, because he was an English professor, so he was teaching me how to write and how to express myself, how to tell good stories. But you know, writing a book, my first book, it wasn't published. My very first book that I wrote, I think I was 7. That was my first book, and it just something natural that I would do. But I think this question might be asking me how I decided to write Esperanza para voar, which also wasn't a thing I sat down and thought, I'm going to write a book. It just happened. I felt I had a story I had to tell, and so I just told the story, wrote it down, and that's how the book came about. It's something that I've always felt I wanted to do, so it wasn't necessarily a decision. It just felt like it's something you have to do, and then I did it. So I guess when I was young, to answer the question, I decided to write books when I was very young. When my dad was still teaching me to write, I decided that I wanted to do that going forward. And what I've learned from it, I've learned so many things from it. Hey, it's really grown me. It's really, in some ways, changed my life. The biggest thing that I think I could say that I've learned is that, you know, writing is very personal. It's subjective. Even reading is. And so you can write whatever you think is really good, and then people might not appreciate it, or they might love it. And I've learned not to take that personally, because there are books that I also don't enjoy, and it's okay. If you write and people don't like it, that's fine. They are entitled not to like what you write. Just as I'm entitled not to like some other books. People are allowed not to like what I write as well. But people are also going to be inspired and moved, which is something that I did not expect that's still happening now. That people reach out to me and say that they've loved my book, they love what I've written, they've been challenged by it, motivated by it, touched by it. And you know, it's just, you know, I guess what I'm trying to say is, writing has taught me to have an open mind, and you can help people, but you must also be open to criticism, because not everybody's going to appreciate what you're doing. So yeah, I took a while to say that, but that's pretty much the biggest thing that I've learned. My biggest challenge, I guess, is writing itself is not, you know, very easy. Sitting down and being disciplined to write, to edit, you know, to communicate with your publishers, who are sometimes all over the world, is not always the easiest thing. So I guess that was my greatest challenge in my writing journey, discipline, and trying not to procrastinate too much for the sake of deadlines, and, you know, making sure that the book is on time. But in general, yeah, I think, you know, I had a period where I wasn't writing because I'd been discouraged by, you know, a publisher somewhere who would say that I should never think of writing, I'm not good. And the challenge was getting back up after I'd been discouraged and knocked down. So it took me a while to kind of get myself up. Actually, I didn't get myself up. I had amazing support from my sister and, you know, my parents, my brothers, and I was able to kind of get back on top. But yeah, so that generally was my biggest challenge, I guess. The next question is, in the book, the boarding school has teenagers forming their own groups, gossiping, isolating classmates, bullying, just like in any school in Brazil. Is it possible that you tried in a way to show that this is a reality anyway in the world? Um, I don't know that I was trying to show that this is a reality anywhere in the world. I think I was just telling a story from the perspective that, I knew, it's brilliant. It's quite amazing when people read it who are not from my country, when they say, oh, but this happens here as well. It just kind of shows you the oneness of humanity, that we might try and act different and, segregate each other, or maybe segregate is the wrong word, but like divide because we feel we're different. But at the end of the day, there are certain things that just really unite us. It's an experience that I've come to learn is in almost every country, if not every country. And it's a reality that's here in Zimbabwe. So I think it's just how people are. I wasn't necessarily trying to prove that, well, it's also like that here. I was just telling the story, like how, I used to see it and experience it. And it's amazing that it's something that several people in different countries also relate to. So I really like this question. The last question is, how did the political crisis in Zimbabwe influence the book's story? Well, the whole book is kind of centered, or rather the political crisis in Zimbabwe in 2008 is centered, in the middle of the book. I'm failing to express this properly. But the book is kind of like weaved into the political crisis, the inflation, the lack of basic things in the stores, the political turmoil, people disappearing for like journalists for telling the truth, and people being attacked and stuff like that. It's something that I wanted to tell, to be quite honest, because I felt there's not a lot of literature from Zimbabwe, from Zimbabwean people about this. And, there's a lot about it academically, but not fiction-wise, and more so even for young readers. And I wanted to tell that story, like from a Zimbabwean perspective, talk about, the difficult times, and try and show that, when we talk about the story, we always think, oh, but it's the parents that went through difficult times. Oh, but it's the grandparents or the adults or the teachers, whatever. But, I was a teenager. I was 16 in 2008. It just really shows you that, as much as you could be young, politics affects everybody, even young people. And it was affecting my life because there were no things in the stores, there was hyperinflation. My parents were really trying to go through try their best to make sure that we were provided for as a family, and we didn't have teachers in class at some point. So yeah, it did influence the book a lot. The whole book is basically told around that story. It's weaved into the daily lives of the characters to show that we could think of politics as something we see on TV, but in reality it actually affects people's lives on the ground, in their private homes, at school. So yeah, that's that's it. So thank you so much for allowing me to talk to you, and I really hope that these questions were answered to your satisfaction and that you enjoyed this video. Really hope that those who haven't read the book will enjoy it when they do, and I wish you luck in all your studies and that you will be successful in life. Thank you again. Bye.